In our thing, you get sent for, you go in alive, you come out dead, and it's your best friend that does it.
It's Thursday, August 3rd, 2017. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coot podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week, I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. In this week's show, Republican efforts to repeal Obamacare dead. Zombie repeal lives on. Bernie Sanders goes on CNN to announce he's moving forward with a single-payer bill. Meanwhile, House Democrats are already moving on a Medicare for All plan with H.R. 676. As of today, 116 Democrats have signed on to the bill, including all 5 from Pennsylvania. Those same House Democrats, however, vow not to withhold funding for anti-abortion candidates. Stephen Miller tells the press, well, Trump's new immigration plan is not racist, you cosmopolitan idiots. And he puts a stake in the Statue of Liberty mythology along the way. The Mooch got screwed. Trump Organization prepared to start trade war with China on Friday. Can you hear it happening already? That's right. Trump-loving gun fetishist calls for shooting protest at Trump's Huntington, West Virginia rally today. And millennials are now the largest voting bloc, according to a new report from the Pew Research Center. The Fairness Center, along with other Commonwealth Foundation and Koch brother groups, are suing teachers. And carpetbagging from Oklahoma? You bet. Lou Barletta, set to officially join the clown car on Friday. Much heralded natural gas severance tax in PA budget negotiations will force the DEP to privatize fracking permits. Governor Tom Carbon Wolf doesn't believe the environment will be weakened. The Stand encampment in Lancaster County will have to find a new location to resist the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline. The 107-acre farm was just sold to Williams, the pipeline company. Can't imagine pipeline protesters will be welcome there now. Lancaster Against Pipelines says the Stand is not a property, it's a vibrant grassroots movement. The fight goes on. In today's last calls, southern and tropical birds seen in central Pennsylvania. No climate change here, Governor Wolf. Space Fest this weekend at the Intrepid Air and Space Museum in New York City. Saturday's lineup looks amazing. I wish I could be there. Hope you can go. He'd report back. And there's the ethics of exploring Mars. Let's not use Mars as a backup planet, says Lucian Walkowitz from the Chicago-based Adler Planetarium. And we'll be checking in with the Woodland Farm Brewery and the Fulton Chain Craft Brewery next week. And Sean gives us the full wedding recap. Just a reminder, everybody, we need you to help keep Pull No Punches Progressive Media going strong. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to ragingchickenpress.org and look for the Support and Membership tab. Click Become a Member, and you're on your way. Not ready to become a member? No problem. You can make a one-time donation by clicking Donate. We need you, the progressive community, to help us deepen Pull No Punches, progressive media that will hold power accountable. Man, I'll tell you, Sean, it has been quite a week. And as we're going through the rundown today, there was like no end to the stuff to talk about. There's no way we're going to get to absolutely everything today. But quite a lot's going on. But, you know, before we get there, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Like President Trump, I'm about to take a 2-week vacation. So I am pretty happy.
So that doesn't suck. You know what I didn't do? I was going to do before. I actually started doing it on my phone, but it was like getting too complicated to see the little stuff because I'm old. I was going to do your the carbon imprint that you were going to leave by flying from Philadelphia to San Francisco on this day. Not that I didn't
driving down to San Diego.
yeah. And what kind of offsets that you're actually going to have to partake in order to kind of neutralize that out. And I say that not as in judgment, because I just did the same thing with my family. So I'm like, 4 times over in debt. So
yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a vacation we've had in the mix for like years now. And we're finally going to California. And we're flying into San Francisco. I'll be there tomorrow at 12 o'clock local time. I was checking in on the weather. It's going to be like 70 degrees and like partly cloudy the whole time we're there. And then we're going to go from San Francisco over to Yosemite in the other side of the state, and then Sequoia, and then back along the coast. So it's going to be pretty fun. I'm definitely looking forward to going to some breweries. We're going to go Russian River this Sunday, which is like a mecca in the craft brew world. And then I'm looking forward to do some hiking and taking a bunch of pictures out in Yosemite.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this before. When you're in San Francisco, if you get the chance, I'd highly, highly recommend the California Academy of Sciences to go there. That place is absolutely amazing, and it's like it's in this kind of complex by Golden Gate Park. Right, so you're across from kind of an art museum, and then there's the kind of Japanese tea garden area and things there. But the California Academy of Sciences is just an absolutely amazing place. I would definitely check it out. Again, then it'll help with some of the offsets too as well, since they're all green powered and have got green roofs and all that kind of stuff too as well.
Well, I'm glad you're looking out for me.
I'm just saying. No, but that was one of the biggest surprises that we had. We went there, took the kids there, and it's just a really, really cool science museum. It's one of the best I've ever seen, and with a full targeting on the problems of climate change and so on. So it's a cool place. But
yeah. So a couple of other things I heard this week. You were just telling me before we got on.
Yeah.
You became a member of Chapo Trap House and a DSA member.
That's right.
You are now fully indoctrinated into the Uber left over here.
Well, I used to be. I wrote this actually. They ask you a series of questions too as well, just like if you want to fill out a survey and stuff like that. And I told them my background, because I used to be, back when I was in college. I was a member of an organization called Solidarity. And they were very much kind of radically democratic socialist organization. And my friend Stu Ross was a part of it, Ben Tupper. I had a bunch of my friends were kind of a part of it. We used to go to the Socialist Scholars Conference in New York City every year. And Solidarity was kind of based out of Detroit, and they had some kind of really cool affiliations with the folks from Labor Notes and so on. But it's interesting is that I know a lot of folks, that have joined up with DSA to be part of kind of broadening discussions, and it felt like look, this is the right time to kind of jump back in. Especially all the discussions I've heard coming out of the folks from DSA, especially the younger members of DSA. They're really committed on the one hand to having open and kind of democratic conversations, and at the same time really having serious discussions about the ways moving forward. So getting beyond all the kind of social media back and forth, trashing this group, trashing that group, but actually thinking about strategy and process. So it makes a whole lot of sense. And for the Chapo stuff, it's like, look, man, I need more stuff to listen to when I mow my lawn. So no, it's a good show. It's a good show, and I think that I like to put my money where my mouth is. Again, as much as we're running this, Raging Chicken Press, and we're doing this podcast, I think we need to support each other. And that's kind of really what's behind it. So I can't, when I can, right, I'm gonna go in and try to kind of kick in a little bit to help build out our media infrastructure, like we've always talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I don't think I'm ever going to be as dirtbag left as you, but
I'm not that bad. Okay.
Oh God, no. But man, so big week. We start this week off with let's get right into it. I mean, we've got the Republican efforts to repeal Obamacare failed like in dramatic fashion. But now we see Trump and some of the folks in the Senate, or I guess House, threatening just basically going to pull away the subsidies from Obamacare to let it die a painful death. So.
Is that the zombie repeal plan that they have?
That's the zombie repeal.
Let it fail. Because I mean, like the let it fail plan, but that Trump wants to do is technically illegal. Like you can't just let it fail if you're the president. You are obliged to uphold the law because it is law. You are constitutionally obliged to make sure the law is operating. You can't just let it fail. So I don't see them doing that. And
well, I don't know. I mean, what? Show me one thing this president has done so far that is concerned about the law or norms or past practices. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything.
Yeah, but no. If this is where the Democrats have to play hardball, and if he wants to let it fail, then then they should take him to court and sue him over this.
And then he pardons himself.
But no, not like that. But force them to execute the law, the jobs that they were to do. You can't just unilaterally sabotage a law because you don't like it. You have to carry out the powers of the office too.
Yeah, you'd think. I'll see it. I'll see what they're going to do. If they're, I'm sure there's multiple ways. All you need is a halfway decent lawyer, right? Who's going to go in there, who's looking for ways of cheating the system. To get around that law, to find a way of defunding Obamacare. Rick Smith has talked about this a lot on his show. He's basically saying that, look, he's done enough to Obamacare already to destabilize the system simply by, making it impossible for health insurance companies to figure out what their next step is. Right? Everything is completely like up in the air. Don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and so a lot of these companies are pulling out. And that could just do it. But again, this is why it's that much more important that we see people like Sanders coming forward and saying they're going to move on single payer.
And this is also where we need to flip the frame as Democrats. And stop calling these people Republicans. Who want to upend a sixth or a fifth of the country's economy.
Yeah.
Start calling them fiscal arsonists, or you start using these type of terms to describe them, what they really are. I mean, this is pretty much arson, what they're trying to do to the economy, trying to burn it down intentionally, with repeal of this plan. And no, that's where the discussion needs to be. Sorry if it ruffles a little too many feathers, or it takes you out of your comfort zone because you're a Democratic strategist and you have to work with Republicans every day. But these people are terrorists, these are arsonists, and this is a form of violence. Taking healthcare away from millions, tens of millions of people is a form of violence. It will result in people dying, and the actions of these actions will be greater than the action. If we're going to talk about people dying, there will be more people dying because of losing healthcare than people who died on September 11th. So why don't we treat them the same way?
No, absolutely. And the point you're making there in the end too, as well, is I think that that's a lot of where the discussion needs to go, right? As much as as Democrats really want to make a case in this, whatever better deal thing that they've got going on about the economy and skills and all this other kinds of stuff. Healthcare, yes, of course, it's a sixth of our economy, but the core of it is about people, right? I mean, it's about, do we or do we not believe that we should take care of each other? And this is one way to do this. And we're the outlier when it comes to kind of, providing health care for everyone in our society. And, as the richest planet on the face of the earth, there's no, the problem is not funds. The problem is ideology and will. Right? The will to say that, no, we're just going to put a stake in the ground and say this is where we take our stand, and we're going to provide Medicare, medical care for all, and not just do it through, the handoffs to the health insurance companies like we saw under Obamacare. But you're right. Right now we got to start. The first thing we got to do is stop the burning down of the building. And then move from there, because what we
also have to name the enemy. You can't just just because you put a vest on, no, not a vest, well, a different type of vest. Just because you put a shirt, tie, and jacket on every day does not does not excuse you from being labeled as someone responsible for killing other people. Like, does not give you full power, carte blanche to go into the Senate, go into the House, and vote to take healthcare away from millions of people, like and be responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people, right? Just because you put a shirt and tie on does not give you it's not dignified, right? It's like doing that. Like that's really the conversations that we should be having, or the frames that we should be having. No, you are killing people with this. You know, you are responsible for people dying. You're responsible for people losing their cancer treatments. Hitting lifetime caps. You know, hitting all these certain different things. You know, responsible for children not getting health care. And there's no dignity in that. Like, there's no just because you put a shirt and tie on does not give you the power to do that. Or to get the power to do that and walk away without any repercussions.
No, you're right. Again, we're talking about we need to start seeing this as, the war that it is. I mean, this is a war on all of us. And it's a slow war. It's a war that's not being fought through the means of, guns and kind of overt violence. But it is the daily violence of policy that the Republicans have been, advocating now for 40 years. And right now, they've, the only good thing we've got working for us right now in terms of the Republican Party is the fact that they're so at war with themselves and they don't have their own stuff together that it's buying us a little time on the left to basically say, okay, how do we move forward with an agenda? And, if it hadn't been, I'm telling you, if it hadn't been for the Women's March, right, and the rise of Indivisible, right, and the constant, folks like Tuesday for Toomey folks, people like, Karen Ferritin and Brooks Gastruth and all the people that are kind of working on climate change issues, fighting this on a daily basis and continuing the organizing, we would have been kind of run over by the semi at this point. Yeah.
And, one of the good things I like a lot is that, Sanders is like, no, I'm not just going to introduce a single payer bill or a healthcare Medicare for all bill or a universal healthcare bill. No, I'm going to introduce it and then I'm going to go campaign on it nationally.
Yeah, that's really good though. So we've got a little bit of sound here. So this is Bernie Sanders. He was on CNN. Jake Tappert's Meet the Press, I guess, Face the Nation.
One of those things.
Talk to people in broadcasting on Sunday, kind of thing, whatever it might be. So he was Jake Tappert's program on CNN, and this is kind of the exchange where Sanders basically announces he's going forward with single payer. Maybe, maybe not.
And literally, as soon as we're through.
Let me start that again. Hold on. See, this is what's we got a great new soundboard, but it's going to take us a little bit.
When you were on the program on July 2nd, you told me you were going to introduce a single-payer health care plan literally as soon as we're through with the Republican health care debate. It seems like we're through, and the Obamacare repeal effort has collapsed. Are you going to introduce single-payer?
Absolutely. Of course we are. We're just, we're tweaking the final points of the bill, and we're figuring out how we can mount a national campaign to bring people together. Here's where we are, Jake, and it's important for Americans to understand this. We are the only major country on earth, the only one, not to guarantee health care to all people. The result is 28 million people who are uninsured, millions of people who are paying deductibles and co-payments that are far too high. And if the Republicans had gotten their way, there would have been another 30 or 32 million people thrown off of health insurance. That is crazy. What we should do is move in the direction of every other major country, guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege. Second thing you got to do is ask ourselves a very simple question, which my Republican friends and the president does not. Why is it that in America, per capita, we are spending far, far more on health care than do the people of any other country? Why are we paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs compared to people all over the world? Those are the issues we've got to tackle. And I think the answer is pretty obvious. What we have now is a health care system not designed to guarantee health care to all of our people in a cost-effective way. What we have is a dysfunctional, complicated health care system designed to make as much profit as possible for insurance companies and drug companies.
Well, there you go. Here you go. This is Sanders once again showing the world that messaging is not hard on this, right? That this is pretty straightforward, and he's not pulling any punches moving on this.
So are you telling me that Sanders didn't author the better deal package?
I think it was a backbencher on that one, Sean. I don't think it was even the room for that one. I mean, can't you just see Bernie sitting there, like sitting down and hearing the deliberations on this? And he goes like, fuck it. I'm going to go talk to Tapper. Just like, I can't deal with you people. You people, you got your heads up your asses. I'm going back out here and get something done.
Yeah, and I mean, like they're going to be introducing this, and he's not going to like sit down on this. He's going to take this around the country and start touting it. One of the things I saw, I don't know if you saw this, but The Nation and a couple of other places. Oh well, like progressives are serious about universal health care, they have to put the policy forward.
Right.
No, that's in order to make this work. I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, Sanders put the universal health care out there, for everyone, but it's on it's on the behest of the think tanks, the institutional framework to come up with the policy end of this, to actually make this work. Right. I mean, if you listen to last week's Chapo Trap House, they had a really good conversation on universal health care and some of the things that, like, how hospitals are the biggest drivers of cost, where a hospital visit that would cost you $10,000 typically costs someone, nothing or just a small copay to go see their family pediatrician. Like, that's the family doctor. That's something that should be talked about there. Or, if you look at someone was also explaining how MRI machines are pretty much like they print money after a year and a half.
Right.
They completely pay themselves off within the first year, purchasing a MRI machine. But, they're just money printers. They're just like a money printing press for hospitals, because you have to go to a hospital and go use that. And the hospitals have higher costs on the system. Right. I mean, like, the money, it's going to be cheaper, to get people going away from the hospitals to, say, an MRI center to go get something done, or an X-ray center to go get something done, instead of having to go to the hospital every time. Like, the policy is out there and people can articulate it, but that's the job of the think tanks.
No,
and stuff like that.
Well, the think tanks
and that is
the
the job
policy
of people.
circles, right? I mean, because Bernie's got his people, right? I mean, Bernie and kind of progressive caucus, right? They've actually been working on policy initiatives for a long time. They've had virtually no voice at all within the Democratic Party, right? In any kind of legitimate way, like in any kind of way that actually they could move things forward. They could take policies and basically get a lot of people behind it because they weren't getting the airtime, right? I mean, how many times do you have Bernie Sanders be on CNN to kind of go talk about healthcare policy or international policy, whatever it might be, before last year's election? He'd be there periodically, always as the kind of kooky guy from Vermont. Now he's there as the kind of the leading voice of pushing the messaging and pushing the direction for the Democratic Party. But meanwhile, you've got Chuck Schumer kind of tugging back to the center in the other direction with this, kind of professional class speak, a better deal stuff, where, really, people need to know what you're fighting for, not just kind of, PR, consultant tested language that you can print it in a New York Times op-ed.
Wait, are you telling me that, like, people who are looking for a better deal don't read New York Times?
Illogical.
No, that's right. It's like
illogical.
That's what I'm saying, Sean. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I thought everyone read the New York Times,
but
outside of New York and D.C.
Well, that's just it. I mean, this is kind of the New York Times. Look, I mean, like I work in higher education, right? And when you have arguments over policies on campus, right, or directions of higher education, academics are the first to go, well, according to the New York Times recently had an article, I was reading the New York Review of Books and blah, 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 right? I mean, these are, like legitimate, like papers of record, kind of important conversations that take place and so on. But you look at the readership numbers, right, and look at kind of what people are paying attention to in their daily lives. Yes, the New York Times is important. Yes, the kind of research that you see in kind of like peer-reviewed studies is absolutely critical to the thing we're doing. That is not the same thing, however, as political campaigning. Right, so putting an op-ed in the New York Times, right? Just this PR-tested op-ed in the New York Times is not going to move people. You need to do what Sanders is doing, right, and then go out and hit the streets.
That's just illogical.
Illogical.
Yes, exactly, according to the Democratic Party. So, but that's pretty crazy. So okay, so you've got that, and then at the same time that Sanders, there's been interesting back and forth there because before Sanders was talking to Jake Tapper and kind of saying he's going to go with the single payer stuff, the House has already kind of moved forward with a Medicare for All plan, this HR 676, and we were talking about this beforehand. We already have 116 Democrats that have signed on to the bill, including all 5 from Pennsylvania. And Sanders has said that, look, he basically said, look, all for it, kind of move forward, whatever you need to do. He's still going to introduce the other plan, the single payer. But the fact that the House is kind of moving forward on this now, that's pretty encouraging too.
Now, how much of this do you think is that just like feigned lip service to their base, to their constituents? Like signing, it doesn't take much to sign onto a bill and say I support it. I mean, that's just something you can go like. Is that just lip service, or is that something that as you as a constituent can hold that person to accountable if they don't come through with it? And when push comes to shove? My
answer is yes, right? Yes and yes. And what I mean by that is this, is that I'm sure there's a bunch of those folks that signed on to that are signing on purely like for cover and for lip service, right? The difference is
Allison Schwartz would have never signed on to this, right? But Brendan Boyle, who is now in Allison Schwartz's seat, has signed on to it.
Well, I don't know. This is where I'd say Allison Schwartz might have signed on to this. Right, and this is what I mean by this is that because the difference between, say, the Allison Schwartz of 2015, for example, right, and today, is not that Brendan Boyle is some sort of kind of like democratic socialist, right? It's not it. The fact is that we've had movements on the ground. The pressure is coming from the organizing. So why do you have 116 Democrats sign on to that bill? Well, they're signing on to give lip service, quote unquote, right, to what they see as a rising power base. Now, the thing is, what's also different about that, though, they can give the lip service, but now you've actually got a burgeoning organization that can hold these people accountable. So, okay, you say, okay, you voted to go for a Medicare for All plan. Right? Let's see the work. And they're going to continue to show up at these people's offices and demand that they make good on their promise. So it gives it a lever to push on there. So that's a significant difference that goes to people who have been doing the organizing in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Sean says,
No, I agree with you on that. Like I was saw in a couple of other places where they just said this is just lip service. It's just, them being Democrats giving a token of appreciation to the base and nothing else.
Well, of course it is. I agree.
They know it's not going to be reality.
Of course it is, right? But again, that's what you got to do, right? They would not have signed on to this if you didn't have a mobilized base.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's crazy. But, and this is the kind of thing that would people need to pay attention to. So before anybody says like, oh, look, the Democrats are finally coming around, right? At the same time, they're moving forward with the single payer stuff. You've got folks, these House Democrats just say, you know what? We're going to, support candidates from their big tent, the Democratic Party. So, no, we will not withhold funding, right, to help fund candidates who have anti-abortion positions, right? So this is, again, the give back to the center.
Yeah, and I find this to be, absolutely ridiculous. Like, I got in an argument with this. Republican light hasn't worked in 2013 or 2012, 2014, 2016. Maybe Republican light will work in 2018. I don't know about you, but what do you think?
It's not that it didn't work, Sean. It's just they weren't trying hard enough. They need to try harder to be centrist and pro-Republican.
I see we got more veterans running. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, maybe we can take some, former, right-wing militia people and bring them in too as well. Because maybe they'll sound working class to them and they're willing to run on a Democratic ticket. Seriously.
But yeah, this is just another, when we talk about needing purity tests, my first two issues for like purity within the Democratic Party is if you support women's rights, absolutely fervent supporter, you don't, or you are consider yourself pro-life, but you will not vote against abortion. Right? That's the only compromise there. You're pro-life, but you won't vote against restricting someone's access to an abortion clinic.
Right. It's in a sense, it's like the Joe Biden position, right? I mean, there's your like the Joe Biden position. He's a Catholic, right? He talks about being personally not something he's like for abortion because of his faith, but the last thing he's going to do is stand in the way for a woman to make that decision on her own, right? Let alone pass a law that would prevent her from being able to do so. Yeah,
and then if you support universal health care or not. Those are the two things.
Well, I would say you got to believe that climate change is real. that's an absolute critical one.
Yeah.
And our own governor seems
that might be an issue.
Yeah, our own governor seems to have some problems with that one, which we'll get to in the second segment. But he keeps on kind of having to be shook back into reality that science matters, right? But I don't know what he's doing.
Illogical.
But that's what he keeps on doing. So, but yeah, so keep an eye on that, because we've got a lot going on here, and I don't know if you saw this. There's only so much we can get into today, but I do want to talk a little bit about just at least to mention. Did you see the whole? Well, yeah, I know you saw because you texted me. You messaged me. You were like, did you see the latest meltdown? Right, going after like CNN and the Statue of Liberty and all.
And you know what the funny thing about that was? We'll just gloss over this real quick.
Yeah.
I think when I was in your class, you had something like when Nixon said, "I'm not a crook," he basically admitted he's a crook.
Yep.
Right. And pretty much like yesterday, Stephen Miller, white nationalist in the Trump administration, pretty much said, this bill isn't racist. Well, you just admitted that the bill is racist because none of the reporters were questioning if the bill was racist. They were questioning on the policy of the bill, which basically like this bill, the Race Act, or RAISE, R-A-I-S-E, I don't know, came out and basically is putting restrictions on green cards. Immigrants who are applying for green cards have to be college educated, know how to speak English, and other things, which is absolutely totally ludicrous. And he basically, they're questioning him on that. And then Stephen Miller just goes off and saying how this bill's not racist. Well, it is racist because you just said it wasn't racist.
Well, again, he had to cover his butt too because the original title of the bill was kind of the RAISE Act to save white people from the black and brown hordes, but they had to eliminate that part just to kind of get people to sign on to it. So, and Stephen Miller said that I don't understand why are you changing the title?
Illogical.
Because it's that's what it is. But he has to go out there and kind of defend it for that because of course it's racist. Only the most core. Core 20% Trump white nationalist voters are going to be like, I don't know what they're talking about. This is not racist. Right?
And there will also be 48 Republican senators to walk off the plank with them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
I love the speaking about like that. I was watching. I think it was like Young Turks. I was watching it this week. Cenk Uygur had good things like, all those 49 Republicans were like, "Yo, John, we just walked off the plank. You got to walk off with us, in order to save us."
Lemmings.
Like, nope.
They're all holding the sign like, I'm with stupid. This way to Cliff,
Yeah.
Oh, man. But, a bunch of stuff that I would love to be able to talk about. We're not going to be able to get into it all. Crazy stuff going on down in West Virginia today. Trump is supposed to be down there in Huntington, West Virginia for a rally. You've got some kind of, Trump-loving gun fetishists out there basically calling on people to come out and shoot protesters if they block the streets or disrupt the rally. That's under the FBI is kind of on this case. Like when I'm like, oh yeah, Jeff Sessions. Yeah. Well,
Jefferson Bogart.
Yeah, so sometimes Trump is right. You can't hold their heads when they're going into the cop car, right? Might as well shoot him first, save him the trouble, right? I mean, he's like, That's nuts. But so that's going on. Tomorrow, Trump is expected to launch a trade war with China, which that should be...
that will end well.
Yeah, I think I hear that one coming already.
Auto-destruct sequence armed.
That's what's going to happen, Sean. That's where we're going to be after Friday. Again, this is the manicness.
There's a reason. I love how he was talking about the Afghanistan war that's still going on, and how he's like, the Chinese are getting all the mineral rights. Like, dude, you're not supposed to put the plans out loud.
No, right, exactly.
There's things you say out loud, and there's things you don't.
Exactly.
Speaking about mineral rights, $1 trillion of nickel and cobalt is not something.
No, exactly.
Don't give up the real reason why we're there.
Why are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it, Donnie? Well, let me tell you. But it's crazy. So we're going to see where that's going to develop. I'm sure that we're going to have some more, a little bit more on that next week. But one thing I do want to say before we go to a break is a cool report that came out from Pew Research Center. We're going to dig into this a little bit more over the next couple of weeks. But millennials now are officially the largest voting bloc. So
just sit down.
What's that?
Sit down and shut up. So just sit down and shut up if you're a millennial,
So, yeah.
The Democrats will not pick up any of your issues like public higher education or student loan debt forgiveness. As you wallow in tens of thousands of dollars of student debt, the Democrats aren't gonna bail you out.
No, they're not.
That's the message I got last year when seeing Bill Clinton speak.
No, that's exactly right. And I think, but what it also does, I think it's just kind of like another piece on, another piece of information, or we want to say that, puts the challenge right before, kind of millennials and everyone else, of course, but millennials too as well, saying, look, you're actually at the point now where you can have a disproportionate impact on the kind of elections and policies and so forth. How do you begin to organize, right? And again, this doesn't happen overnight. Like we were talking about at the beginning, of today's show about, with DSA, is that, lots of millennials are flocking to DSA and taking part in some really kind of important conversations. But also you're seeing, kind of re-energize labor movements through like Fight for 15 and so on. You see, right here in Pennsylvania, you've got the PA Student Power Network and One Pennsylvania.
And then you also have the largest Democratic donor, Tom Steyer. His group, I showed you that video last week. His group, Next Gen Climate, is now Next Gen America. And looks like they're going to be taking on big millennial issues. That's where the change is going to come, from the bottom up. I mean, yeah, granted, Tom Steyer is the largest Democratic donor, out there, but he has the foresight to know that, these people are onto something here, or these people should at least be listened to or have their issues talked to in the public realm.
No, right. And again, I would say, and for now, he's funding this stuff, right? And for now, he's got money behind some things. And like Next Gen and like a whole series of other organizations, different things happen, right? You can talk about the person funding it or the people, the leader or that kind of stuff, but always, always, always the power comes from below. But, you have to do the difficult work of organizing. And that's what I think that we're seeing this happen now. There was an interesting part of that study, again, I haven't read all the details of it, but there's a part of that study which should also be encouraging. So, for example, my generation, right, Gen X, right, we were always written off as we were the cynical ones. We were we're dropping out of this stuff, screw corporate America. We're anti-corporate. Screw government, everyone's out there. There's no job prospects and all this, and kind of we were told that we were going to be voting at the lowest levels, right? Especially compared to boomers, that we were just going to drop out. It turns out over the decades, we've seen that folks that are kind of part of that Gen X generation have proved that analysis wrong, right? And are now, as we're kind of in our 40s, right, late 30s, 40s. Now that we're in kind of at that point, we're voting at much higher levels, right, than even the previous generation did at this point in their lives. That's super encouraging. And then when you start looking at millennials and compared to Gen Xers, they're even outpacing Gen X, right? So as much as we hear all the media stuff about, people being disengaged and not voting and so on, there's a lot of organizing good work that's going on. It just takes a while to get people involved and then pointed at an electoral process. So,
and it's also the way I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you campaign on the issues,
right,
people will come out and vote.
There you have
it.
Right.
If you can't, look at the DA race. Yes, Krasner won in a very crowded field, but you know what? He actually went out and campaigned on the issues, stuck to those issues. And what happened? You saw a 40% increase, a 12% voter turnout in 2009 for the last time a DA was up, to a 17 or 18% voter turnout. Why? Because you had someone there who was campaigning on the issues. Is that still a bad number? Yes, but to see those type of gains in an off-year primary in a municipal race that is not the mayoral race,
right, that's
still a big improvement, and it shows you that if people campaign on the issues, they will come out and vote.
Yeah, that's right. This is where your data sets are not going to get your results. The campaigning on the issues is what's going to get it. Absolutely right, Sean. All right, so listen, we're coming up to a break. When we come back, we're going to get into some stuff more locally here in Pennsylvania. We'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do with the show for next week. And kind of look forward to what goes here. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1981. That was the day 13,000 workers in the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization, or PATCO, went out on strike. Highly stressed workers had been driven to nervous exhaustion by long hours, problematic technology, and brutal management. They wanted better pay and working conditions and a 32-hour work week. PATCO workers had proven that militancy bred victories throughout the 1970s. But public sector employers went on the offensive as the decade drew to a close. By the time Ronald Reagan was elected to office, automation, deregulation, and inflation had taken its toll. As Joseph McCartan details in his book Collision Course, controllers found new technology unreliable. They experienced, on average, a computer outage a day in critical moments of takeoffs and landings. As well, the Airline Deregulation Act and the Civil Service Reform Act became law in October 1978, serving to restrict union rights and worsen working conditions. By the late 1970s, inflation had tripled. Federal workers, unlike those in the private sector, lacked any COLA protections. Emboldened by their skill level, solidarity, and previous victories, the controllers walked. Invoking Taft-Hartley, President Reagan issued a 48-hour back-to-work ultimatum. In a historic move, he fired the strikers, jailed their leaders, and forced costly injunctions that spelled doom for the union and the labor movement. Many labor activists had hoped the Teamsters and machinists would walk out in support. Instead, the strike was a pivotal moment for labor. It ushered in an era of unprecedented attacks not seen since the 1930s. As Robert Weir notes, PATCO's defeat touched off a new wave of downsizing, decertification, and concession strikes. The labor movement continues to suffer its impact today.
All right, welcome back to Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney. I'm the editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, here once again with Sean Kitchen. A couple housekeeping issues, folks. Next week, as we kind of talked about a little bit already, Sean is going to be away. I'm also going to be away when we do the podcast. So we got a good show for you next week anyways. I'm going to be talking with Karen Ferridan from Burke's Gas Truth. She also writes for Raging Chicken Press. And we're going to be talking about pipeline issues. We're talking about the severance tax, and hope we get her talking a little bit about some of the longwall mining issues that we discussed in the podcast last week. So we will have a show for you next week. I'll do a little intro stuff, do a little newsy stuff. Then we'll have the interview with Karen Ferridan, and I'll close out with letting you know a little bit about some of the Adirondack beers I'll be checking out, but more about that in the last call today. So there's that to begin with. Sean, You brought this up too as well. This is a really interesting story dealing with the Fairness Center and some other kind of Koch brother funded groups in here. Why don't you kind of launch us into this?
Sure. So there's a report published by PA Spotlight, which is an opposition research outlook that was started by the SEIU and maybe a couple of other unions, looking into Scott Wagner, his connection to the Commonwealth Foundation, the Koch brothers, and all these other groups. And they're also doing reports on the Commonwealth Foundation and other stuff. I'm pretty sure. So you've heard of the Fairness Center, right?
Yes.
I think APSCUF, the union you belong to, is actually caught up in a lawsuit with them a couple of years ago over dues dollars and where they go and how they spend it, even though it is illegal in Pennsylvania and it's illegal under the Supreme Court of the United States to spend dues dollars on overt political campaigning, right? You know, and really the Fairness Center and another group called the Americans for Fair Treatment, they solely exist to file these frivolous lawsuits against unions, public sector unions, and to really tie them up in the court system so they drain resources. These are why these lawsuits are brought forward. Then they write op-eds about like ghost teaching, which is really an issue that does not exist, and other stuff that's happening under the school districts or with these public sector unions or with other locals throughout the state. And so the Fairness Center has a connection to the Commonwealth Foundation. Matt Briette from the Commonwealth Foundation and a couple of other groups he started. He sat on the board of the Fairness Center. Recently, the Fairness Center actually scrubbed their documents of Briette from the page, which is kind of interesting. He's not on there anymore, but he has worked with them. And, and everyone knows the Commonwealth Foundation is also connected to the state policy network within the Koch brothers, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this Koch brother funded state policy network of think tanks. So the Commonwealth Foundation, the Mackinac Institute, and other groups to drive, libertarian ideology and libertarian leaning, going after public sector unions, going after pensions, and other issues with that they have with the left. Basically, their goal is to make Pennsylvania a right-to-work state. And they'll go after the unions any way possible, and these frivolous lawsuits are one of those ways. So here, the PA Spotlight dug up the 990 forms, which, I actually searched. I'm assuming they dug up the 990 forms because on the 990 forms where these nonprofits are located is out of Oklahoma City. So the Fairness Center and Americans for Fair Treatment are registered in this like Chase Bank office building or PNC or some sort of like bank building out of Oklahoma City. And I don't have the paper in front of me, but I actually like dug up the addresses of other organizations that are out there. And again, like out of this same suite, in Oklahoma there's like 4 or 5 other like heavily funded GOP Koch brother backed issue groups from the Koch brothers. And two of these groups are Americans for Fair Treatment and the Fairness Center. And the Fairness Center, they actually share office space with the Commonwealth Foundation in King of Prussia and also in Harrisburg out of the manufacturers building.
Yeah, this is kind of like, the 3-card Monte game, right? The shell game, basically, where that most people who are not paying really, really close attention to what's happening in politics and what's happening in the news and so on, you see this expert come on from the Fairness Center, you see this expert come on from the Commonwealth Foundation, you see this expert come on for Americans for Fair Treatment, right? And they seem like, okay, they're corroborating each other, and that really is the game of the right. And here you have it. You can't get any closer than actually, occupying the same office space, basically, with these same people. I mean, these are people that work together in collaboration to undo the gains of the 20th century, really.
And really, like the unofficial capital of Pennsylvania is the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association building on State Street, right across the street from the Capitol. I mean, that is where the Capitol is pretty much located. You see Wagner going in and out of there all the time. You see Terzai, you see Corman, you see leaders from the GOP. Barletta and Perry were going in there back in the fall time, back I guess last year, last year, talking about Obamacare, and before the election and the run up to the election about why we need to repeal Obamacare. Like this is where these policies originate from, and these are the buildings. These are where the lobbyists are. This is where, pretty much outside of Greenlee, which is right across the street, another lobbying firm. This is the real Pennsylvania Capitol. This is where the policy comes, and this is where people like Turzai and Corman get their marching orders.
Yeah, that's why you remember when we were in Harrisburg for the budget rally. That was People's Budget Rally in the state capitol. What I thought was awesome about that is SCIU and a bunch of affiliated organizations kind of working in concert. They went outside the Capitol afterwards, right? So you had the rally in the Capitol calling out legislators, but then they marched directly to the Manufacturers Association, right? I mean, the idea that here you've got this is a real source of power, and that's exactly what speakers were saying on the sidewalk outside the manufacturing building or the Association of Manufacturers building, because again, these things work hand in hand.
Yeah. So it was good like pulling out the 990 forms of all these places and seeing that, these people are a bunch of carpetbaggers. Briette is not from Pennsylvania. He is from Michigan. He is the definition of a carpetbagger. He moved to Pennsylvania with the goal of working for the Commonwealth Foundation, 10 or 15 years ago, and to bring these ideologies forward. He has no ties to Pennsylvania. He was a public school teacher, supposedly, out in Michigan, up in like the northern part of Michigan, and he carpetbagged him with his way to Harrisburg and just trying to destroy or repeal the 20th century, pretty much.
Crazy, man. That is the story. So we'll keep on kind of watching this and see where this moves on here. Just got to be aware of this. And this is one of the things we've been talking about consistently on the show, too. We've been writing about in the pages of Raging Chicken Press, trying to build these connections. And we got to keep on repeating it over and over and over again, so we don't forget these kind of networks of, power really on the right, which are seeking to kind of undo everything public, right, and send it off to the highest bidder. And so,
and it's not just the Koch brothers; it's also Scaife and DeVos foundations that are funding these groups. It's people that you should really start getting to know the names of.
No, exactly. And I go back to that Jane Mayer book, right? Dark Money. We talked about this in the show, kind of back in the fall. Her book, Dark Money, lays all this stuff out. Talk about the Scaife Foundation. The Scaifes are based out of Pittsburgh, right? So a lot of this kind of right-wing movement, that got its initial funding, came out of our backyard here in Pennsylvania, right? So this is not just the Koch brothers out in Kansas, right? But this is the Scaifes right down there in Pittsburgh, right? The DeVosses from Michigan, right? Who are now sitting, Betsy DeVos sitting as the Secretary of Education. These people are kind of inching their way to kind of complete, utter takeover. So, I mean, I hate to, sound that extreme, but holy moly, this is kind of exactly what they've been doing for the longest time. So, and so, the money seems to be lining up on this one. And so it looks like we even got, one of the right-wing favorites is going to be throwing his hat in the ring. You
mean his hood?
His hood, yes, his hood.
his white bed sheets.
That's right, his white bed sheets in the ring to basically run for office. We got Hazleton's own Lou Barletta, right, joining the clown car.
Yeah, it obviously it can get bigger. First you had Rick Saccone in Godly Heritage, Jim Christiana, who is running for some reason, probably just for name recognition to get a job somewhere else down the line, and someone else, and now Lou Barletta. Lou Barletta actually came out in praise of the Race Act yesterday, so it's going to be one of his big campaign points. But
well, I was watching some video, and I said I was going to bring up some sound of that today too as well, but I just kind of ran out of time. But he spoke when during the campaign. He spoke. I think it was in Hazleton or around Hazleton, maybe Wilkes-Barre is where it was. It was a big Trump rally, and Barletta was kind of one of the keynotes on that one. And basically, he was telling the story about why he's anti-immigrant. Why he's actually had some of the kind of the worst anti-immigrant policies in the country at the time in Hazleton. basically drove out like a big chunk of their tax base because immigrants were being threatened, right? People who were, let's say these not was immigrants just sitting on the corners doing nothing. These are immigrants that were actually in the farms and the factories in Hazleton area. And they kind of left, right? Right? He was basically saying that you had to show your papers if you wanted to rent a place. You had to show your papers. You want to pay your bills, all sorts of stuff like this. So, and so it makes sense why Lou Barletta was such a strong supporter of Donald Trump, and why he hasn't walked away. He hasn't walked away from that stance since. Yeah,
it's. It's gonna be fun to watch. I can't wait to watch this campaign go down in flames.
Yeah, well, let's again, it's always fun to watch it, to watch it go down in flames, I guess. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a crowded field, right? I mean, we're going to see the clown car is just going to be awesome. I mean, you've got the one guy who just like he got really pissed off last week. I don't know if you saw this, but got really pissed off, he's questioning his finances and things like this. And this is what he told a reporter.
I'm in a waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
That, of course, was Senator Wagner. That was...
I'm in a waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
Of course, Senator Wagner is jumping into that race. But so we'll see what happens. I mean, this is going to be it is going to be an insane field all around. But I guess that's what we have there. Now, again, these are two different races. We got the governor race and we've got the Senate race. So you've got Senator Soprano running for governor, and then you've got Lou Barletta going to challenge Casey. And we're going to have right across the board, the Democratic primaries are just going to be insane in Pennsylvania.
So, do you think climate change will be a key sticking point in the Republican or the gubernatorial election?
Well, I do think so, but especially because Senator Wagner does have some very interesting things to say about climate change, and maybe you remember this from me earlier on this year.
The Earth moves closer to the sun every year. We have more people. Humans have warm bodies, so is heat coming off? We're just going through a lot of change, but I think we are, as a society, doing the best we can.
We're doing the best we can, Sean. I mean, how do we cool down our bodies? I mean, you can't stop climate change when we have warm bodies, and the Earth moves closer to the sun. I mean, come on, we got the two strikes against us to the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, we could always just blast the AC.
Well, this is this is the hidden possibilities of Alex Jones's lizard men, because lizard men are, of course, cold-blooded, Sean. Right, so the cold-blooded lizard men are going to help balance out our warm bodies, right, and the Earth's refusal to stay away from the sun.
Or maybe we can privatize the fracking permitting process in Pennsylvania.
Exactly, right? So let's not forget, this is important, folks. It's like you were joking about the climate change thing, but we've got right now, Governor, we've talked about this on the show over and over again. We got Pipeline Tom, right? Tom Wolf, who is putting all cards in with the natural gas industry, right? And
the coal industry.
And the coal industry. Right, any kind of extractivism that you want in the state. I mean, he's going in whole hog here, and as part of the PA budget negotiations, again, this is something that Wolf campaigned on, right? A severance tax for Marcellus Shale in order to fund education. That was one of his campaign things, so we knew that kind of going in that was going to be a move he's going to make. But now that he's got, it looks like there's at least in the Senate version of the funding formula, how to fund the budget, there is a severance tax that's in there, and it's being kind of heralded as this great thing. Even the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, right, put out a position on this, saying it's supported behind the severance tax and so on. However, this severance tax, if it goes through, of course, the House still has to deal with it in Pennsylvania. If it goes through in the form that it is not so simple as simply just taxing natural gas. Like right now, Pennsylvania is the only state that does not tax natural gas, right, through a severance tax. But this is worse than that, right?
Right. So as part of the deal, for people to understand how this works, these budget negotiations, these are deals that were made up between the Senate caucus leaders, probably Jake Corman and Joe Scarnati, they were made up with the House Democratic leaders, Dermody, Markosik, Costa in the Senate. These were deals that were all agreed upon between these 5 or 6 parties and the governor's office, right? So you give us the severance tax, we'll give you the votes for this, we'll not make a fuss about having this provision in here. It's a trade-off. And this is how they see it, a tit for tat trade-off, where you get your woefully inadequate severance tax, which is well below what anyone wants, and we'll in return vote for a process that will privatize the permitting process for fracking wells in Pennsylvania. And basically, the DEP, if this happens, they will have a year or 2 years. They'll have 2 years to find contractors, environmental engineers, and outsource this work to private industry, and then that private industry will then be responsible for writing the permits. Illogical. It's probably one of the worst fucking pieces of legislation that's for the environment, and that you could think of, and the governor is going to sign off on it.
Yeah,
this is what State Impact said. Governor Tom Wolf is expected to support the amendment package. His spokesman Mark Nicastre, don't know how to really pronounce his name at the moment, would not say whether governor backs the measures, but pledged that the environmental protections would not be weakened by any potential changes in the DEP's operation. And this is quote: "The Department of Environmental Protection is resolute in its responsibility to protect our air and water." In a statement that was repeated by the DEP itself a short time later, he said in a statement repeated by the DEP, and then end quote, and then quote, "and they are committed to ensuring that there are predictable and fair processes in place for the industry," end quote. This might be one of the worst. This might be one of the worst environmental legislations that has gone through this administration so far. We just talked about a couple weeks ago. Governor Wolf allowed longwall mining to become legal in Pennsylvania at the behest of Consol Energy. This does not have the support of Quigley, who he fired last year. Obviously, Quigley was very outspoken against this. This also is drawing blowback from a DEP secretary under Tom Ridge, Tom Ridge, going all the way back to Ridge, who was Ridge and Schweiker from 2001 to 2003. David Hess, and he said this proposal is far away from the norm, that it is almost incomprehensible and I think irresponsible. That is coming from a Republican DEP secretary, Republican appointed DEP secretary from 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And this is what Quigley had to say. Practically speaking, these amendments gut the function of the DEP and effectively destroy its purpose and mission. They are incredibly bad and dangerous ideas. And Governor Wolf is going to go on and sign this if the House sends it to him.
Yeah, and this, again,
illogical.
This stuff is so bad. I mean, this is so bad. This is another piece from State Impact, and look, companies are asking basically federal regulators to approve thousands of miles of pipeline from Appalachia all through Pennsylvania and so on. There's 11 pipelines, 11 pipelines that are kind of tasked to be approved. 5 of them have already been approved. And even scientists are chiming in on this. This is from State Impact. Say, quote, "The rush to more fully tap the rich Marcellus and Utica shales is bad for a dangerously warming planet, extending the country's fossil fuel habit by a half century. Industry consultants say there isn't even enough demand in the United States for all the gas that would come from this boost in production." And we've talked about this before too as well. A lot of the gas that they're trying to extract from Pennsylvania is bound for China anyways, right? And that's the pipelines are going for export. What's crazy about this too is I was reading this other piece that was talking about the cracker plant, the Shell cracker plant out kind of in the Pittsburgh area.
We could build 4 more.
Right, we could build 4 more. And they were talking like about, I wish I had it. I wish I had it up here, but they were talking about, the amount of what they're calling wet natural gas they could extract for that to go to this cracker plant to turn it into plastics and so on, or the chemicals for plastics and so on. They have enough of this wet natural gas to kind of run like for, I don't know, 2040 or 2050 or something like this. They were talking about the thousands of thousands of, I don't know, not gallons, but metric, whatever it is, what are they measured in, of natural gas kind of coming out there. And I'm thinking, we just got a warning like last week that climate scientists are saying basically we've got 3 years to get this under control. Right, and we're talking about here in Pennsylvania expanding pipelines, expanding the number of cracker plants, and going kind of like doubling down on extractivism in this. And
this is climate denial, right? This is not like denial in the definition. I'll say this again: refusal to satisfy or request a desire, or refusal to admit the truth or reality of something. Right. This isn't that type of denial. This is, if you go down, this denial, this definition of denial fits better. A defense mechanism in which confrontation with a personal problem or with reality is avoided by denying the existence of the problem or the reality. Like, this is that type of climate denial. He is a climate denier in the sense that, he's saying that no, the DEP, the regulations DEP will not be weakened by allowing longwall mining. The environment will not be weakened by, giving the free market the ability to write fracking permits. Like, this is denialism in its like very existence.
No, exactly. It's denial at multiple levels. Not only were we talking just about climate change. We're talking.
This isn't like Scott Wagner giving some like bullshit answer about why climate change is fake. This is the governor of a state, the most progressive governor in the country, supposedly. He's been earmarked as. This is the most progressive governor who, is denying the fact that he's. Where his rhetoric does not where his actions don't meet his rhetoric.
Absolutely. Well, look at this, right? Too, you just read off this statement about how the DEP is actually committed to ensuring safe, blah, blah, blah. Right? There's been all sorts of denialism when it comes to like the impact on drinking water and so on. Let me just give you this, right? This
we've had well spills or the Mariner 2 East pipeline gets shut down because of contaminating drinking water.
Well, here it is. I got the numbers right here. Sunoco's pipeline construction has resulted in 90 spills at 61 locations across the state, according to new information provided as a part of an ongoing litigation. The amount of drilling mud spilled into aquifers, right? Not like, puddles, aquifers, streams, and wetlands across the state is estimated at about 220,000 gallons. Right? This is undisputed facts now. This is not just people making claims about this stuff. This is actually happening. We also saw that the Mariner East pipeline has been halted, right? In part because that you had at least 14 families have had their drinking water kind of affected on this, and there's all sorts of environmental violations that are going on, right? And still, right, they're getting a pass, and now they're going to have weakening regulations on the natural gas industry. This is not good.
No, this is. I think it's time to start stating that Governor Wolf is a climate denier if he's not going to start stepping up for the environment.
Right. We have to. It's like time to sit there and say, look, we're all hands on deck. No, Governor Wolf. And, I suspect this is a lot of what we're going to hear from Karen Ferdinand when we talk next week. And she's got a great piece up in Raging Chicken Press that we published earlier this week. You got to check that out, laying out the case against the severance tax. Well, I shouldn't say this, not against the severance tax per se, but saying like this is essentially a diversion. What we need to do is ban fracking. What we need to do is stop the madness, not simply looking for ways to profit for it like on the way down, right? So yeah, we might have nice little kind of like, furry cushions on the ride into hell, but I'd rather not go to hell. You know what I'm saying? This, come on, man. This is nuts. This is why this really disturbed me, Sean, to find out this week too as well, is that in the face of this, right, we've got the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline, right? And we've talked about this a lot on the show, where you've got the Stand, right? One of the most amazing, I don't know, kind of visual encampments in resistance to the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline. This was out in Lancaster County, right? It was on this kind of 107-acre farm that the pipeline was slated to go through. The pipeline company, Williams, was looking to basically get the federal government to, well, they actually got already the permission to go through, right? So basically the land's getting handed over to this pipeline company. The big dispute with the family who owned the farm was that, look, the pipeline company, Williams, and wanted only this part of the property that was going to butt up against the about the river, because they wanted the water from the river to aid with the fracking, right? To kind of put, take good drinking water out and put polluted water back. That's what they wanted. The folks who own the farm were basically saying, no, you can't just take part of our land. You're going to have to buy us all out. We don't know how much. So we have to buy ourselves. So this stand has been there. They've been holding weekly nonviolent action trainings. They've been building all this stuff. And we just got news this week that the pipeline company, Williams, right, basically bought the 107-acre farm from the family that owned it. And there's no doubt that they're going to be kicking off the protesters as soon as possible, especially as you've got, you got folks in Pennsylvania who are looking to criminalize pipeline protests to begin with.
Yeah, this is going to be this is definitely an unexpected turn, but I guess everyone has their price.
Well, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, you get the point, and you got to do this. And I think what's Lancaster Against Pipelines, right? One of the kind of main organizing groups that has been holding the nonviolent direct action training and all this. I was super impressed with them this week because they refused to kind of make the family who owned the farm the enemy. Right. I can see it. I haven't seen this yet, but I can imagine people kind of like blaming the family who own this. But, look, their land is going to be destroyed. Right. And they've given the spills and all this kind of stuff. At some level, you can't blame them to say, look, OK, if my land's going to be destroyed anyways, it's going to be virtually worthless. I might as well, get something and get out of here. Before my own water is all polluted and all that kind of stuff. But what the line that the Lancaster Against Pipelines took was basically say, look, the stand is not a property, right? It's a vibrant grassroots movement. And they're saying we will find other locations, and they are already looking for other locations along the path of the pipeline, to kind of rebuild their stand. So, I mean, the fight goes on, but this is also, it shows you when you've got, billions of dollars in your back pocket that you can throw out millions of dollars as pocket change to buy off people for their property. We're in it. And this is why we need to have strong legislation at the state level that's going to prevent these pipelines to begin with. So, I don't know, man.
Illogical.
This is just the direction that we go. Well, listen, we're coming up to a break, and when we come back after the break, we'll go to the last call, and we got some fun stuff. We'll talk about where we're going to be the next week or so, and close it out for the day. I'm getting more depressed as the day goes on now, Sean. I started pretty all chipper, ready to go with our new soundboard and all this kind of stuff, and now I'm bringing myself back down to reality that. Maybe these little sounds here are not going to change the direction of our politics, but it makes for a better show, I guess. No. So anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back right after this break. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting, investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new, sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken, back for the last call. Here we go. We try to have a little fun at the end of every podcast, and usually the time when we bring you kind of more fun, kind of cool news, stuff about space, stuff about beer. And today, of course, we got to talk about the wedding, right? Sean, if you remember on last week's show, we talked about Sean was going to get, he didn't go the full Grimace, right, dressing in a purple suit, which I was a bit bummed about because I thought that just would have been awesome. But you were at your brother's wedding last weekend in Philadelphia. How was it, man?
It was pretty good. It was fun. I was the best man for the wedding, so it was a gray suit, gray jacket, gray pants, white shirt with a very light lavender vest and lavender and white striped tie. So we came out. It came out really nice.
It's going to be your new profile picture on Facebook, Sean. Are you going to take down the arm folded, bearded plaid shirt picture and put up the one with you in the tux?
No. But I had two jobs. One, don't drop or lose the rings during the ceremony.
It's an important job.
Yes. And then two, give the best man speech. And I succeeded in both.
You succeeded in both. Is that because everyone was seeing things through beer-goggled eyes, or?
No, we actually had some pretty light beer there on tap. I had like 3 or 4 beers before I gave the best man speech just to loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty funny because I got a reaction on my brother saying, "That's not true," as I'm speaking in front of like 80 people about, how my brother used to tease me and everything growing up. So, of course, this was like the only opportunity probably to ever get him back in such a way. And I did. So, I started off now, like the setting, it was her family, his family, and a bunch of clients and friends in the photography world they have. And they're both pretty like conservative fiscally. So I started off the speech, thank you. I hope you guys have a great marriage, best of luck. And I said, this is the longest time my brother Joe will go without interrupting me or trying to argue with me about politics. And you heard some like laughters throughout the thing. And I went into
the nods of recognition.
And I said, and then I went down. I was like, for Felicia's sake, I hope, you don't have to experience some of the things I experienced growing up with my brother, like having your face shoved into a bowl of pasta, having your food spiked with hot sauce, or having your fingers crushed into the bedroom door as you're being kicked out. And he's like, that never happened.
That never happened.
And everyone started laughing. Also told the story how when I was born, he asked if he was going to have a Smurf as a brother because I was still like pinkish or purplish blue coming out. And when he saw me for the first time, and he said, I'm going to have a Smurf for a brother and something. So I made sure I hit those embarrassing points right on cue. And, I got some laughter out of people, and it was a good time. After the best man speech rest of the night, I was like, oh, you're Joe's brother. So, and it's actually pretty funny getting back at him because my brother is, uptight. When it's business, it's, always business with him.
Yeah.
And he's uptight, and I think that, other people never really see him get embarrassed in any type of way. So this was that, golden opportunity.
You broke through his veneer.
It's all it was definitely people. You had audible laughs. People weren't cracking up, but you had audible laughs the whole time, and so it was great. It was fun. It got through without crying, so that was always good.
That's awesome.
my parents liked the speech. It was good. It was a good brotherly love type thing.
It's good. Well, this is a big weekend for you right away. I mean, one, you kind of nailed it as the best man at your brother's wedding. You didn't drop the rings, right? And for the trifecta, right? Last Monday was your birthday. We did a little special mini podcast on Monday to say happy birthday. Did you have at least a decent birthday?
Yeah, I crushed all 8 of the Cloudy 2 beers by that point.
I should say Sean was coming back, and if you remember a couple weeks back at Free Will Brewery had a can release of this Cloudy 2. Great kind of New England IPA and stuff, and I bought a case of this stuff. I'm like, oh, here we go, and it had 2 4-packs for Sean, and they didn't last.
They weren't coming home, and they weren't being left behind when I go away for 2 weeks.
No, but you were treating them like you take fish out of the freezer and defrost it. Like, well, you can't freeze it again. You got to eat it. It's kind of like, look, these are fresh. These are fresh cans. You can't leave them lying around. Got to drink them.
Exactly. You got to treat your beer with respect. That's alcohol.
I have to say, the first thing you did when I gave you that 4-pack as a can is you flipped them over to look at the date stamp. Right? So it's like, most people look for the kind of like, buy before, warnings on food labels. Sean's looking for the freshness stamp on the can.
They weren't that good. They were only 10 days old.
Yeah, no, sorry, man.
You could have delivered them to Harrisburg. What was your problem?
Yeah, right. Sorry you couldn't have the sensation of sticking your mouth under the tap. Oh, man. So, yeah, it was kind of a cool week. So, so next week, you talked a little bit about before, you're going to California. Highlights on the trip that you're thinking about?
Definitely hiking through Yosemite, hiking through, doing some hikes through Sequoia, and then enjoying some of the beer out there. We're going to go to Russian River on Sunday.
Nice.
There's a couple really good breweries in California or in San Francisco that are like exploding right now. So we're going to go. I have a Saturday to myself, and then when we're down in San Diego area, we're going to go to Stone Escadino, which is the original Stone Outlook, which is like 20 miles outside the city, and then looking forward to doing some of the sightseeing. We're going to go up top of Los Angeles, the Griffith Observatory. And so you'll get like a whole entire view of the grid at nighttime, which is going to be beautiful. Which is like, I told my parents that, and they kind of looked at me like all cockeyed. I'm like, this is like, whenever you see a movie with Los Angeles in it, you always see the scene of them overlooking the Griffith Observatory, looking into the city.
Yep.
Seeing Los Angeles in the valley.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so you're going to do your hiking there. I'm actually going to be up in the Adirondacks for a bit. I'm going to see my folks up there. Spending around time around the Old Forge area, and I'm really excited. They have we've talked about them on the show before. There's these 2 breweries up there. One in particular, the Woodland Farm Brewery. It's in Marcy, New York. It's actually, again, you could ride a bike to it from where I grew up. They have just great stuff, and it looks like they have a whole bunch of new stuff on tap. They always have a couple things on cask. So I'm looking forward to checking in with them. I've got my Woodland Farm growler, going to take it back with me, for that. And then up in Old Forge actually is the Fulton Chain Craft Brewery. They've got it looks like I was seeing online, right? Their beer list is a little funky to try to make sense of what they have on tap right now. But they have like this peanut butter stout that I'm just kind of spacing the name on it right now. They have like this peanut butter stout, and it looks like they're canning it, but I couldn't tell if they have a crowler machine now, or if it's actually canned. So we'll see. So maybe I'll get a crowler of the stuff. If I can keep it, I'll get it, towards the end of a trip, and I'll try to bring one back. But I don't know, because then it won't be fresh enough for you by the time you get back from California. So it'd be wasted. So there's that. So I mean, it should be an interesting week, and we'll use that as a time to give you some little different stuff here on the show and so on. So I don't know if people are looking for anything cool to do this weekend, though, and you're in the kind of Northeast area. One of the cool things, this is just like I'm actually kind of bummed that I just can't be there. But in New York City this week, if anybody's been to New York, you know that the Intrepid, it's an Air Force or aircraft carrier, is going to have it's permanently docked, and it's now a museum. They have basically, it's called Space Fest, right? And at the Intrepid Museum, there's going to be the Space and Science Festival hosted by Intrepid Sea Air and Space Museum in New York. It looks like some really cool stuff. Space.com, it's a lot of the stuff. We look at some stories where they're going to have a booth there and so on. But if you go to their webpage, what's really cool is that Saturday, if you're looking for a day to go on Saturday. It looks like it's all packed. Right, so you got talks. I mean, look, you got to warn you though. You got to be prepared to geek out if you're going to do. NASA's going to be there, and you've got some robotics people that are going to be there. Some robot people. Brooklyn Robot Foundry. I don't even know what that is. Lego, of course, will be there. So it should be kind of a really awesome day. And then there's these presentations in the evening. You got someone from NASA, for example, is going to be there to talk about going to Mars. He says, meet the NASA team that is helping us get to Mars. Special guests from NASA will answer questions and share stories about sending humans a long distance into space. Really freaking cool stuff. So, if you can, check it out. You can go to the intrepidmuseum.com, right, and check them out there at the space, what's it called again? Look at the Space and Science Festival. It should be kind of pretty cool. And as I was going through that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to have time to get into it now, but I came across this woman. Her name is Lucianne Walkowitz. I think I'm getting her name close, at least. The researcher at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. She's doing some really cool work. It's like while she's there, she's basically been, she's been named the Library of Congress's Baruch S. Bloomberg Chair in Astrobiology, the first woman to hold the year-long position. And while she's there, she's going to work on a project with the title, quote, Fear of a Green Planet, Inclusive Systems of Thought for Human Exploration of Mars. And why this is interesting for the kind of discussions we've had here in terms of the space news here and kind of the last call segment, is that she basically makes the argument that, the current state of space exploration, I'm quoting from this article, of course, this article in space.com, quote, the current state of space exploration policy and how the big questions on colonization tie into activism and with underrepresented students in science and technology. And she's basically looking at these two treaties that actually govern space. One, there's the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, right? And then a few years ago, where you have the Space Act was enacted. And the Space Act basically said that you could, quote, that you could actually own some of the products of a celestial body. So before, for example, this Outer Space Treaty of 1967 basically said that no, you cannot own a celestial body. This new Space Act, right, again, moving us towards this galactic capitalism that I keep on hammering about, was basically a subtle change in that, which is allowing for, again, private exploration and private profit-taking in this in the future. So really interesting stuff. We're going to get into that a little bit more. We'll have a little bit more time to talk. It's been a long day here, but I don't know, man. I think we're both on the edge of vacation. We're both not vacation. This is kind of a family visit for me too as well. I haven't seen my folks in a bit, so that'll be good. So what else you got going on? Oh, I can't forget. Because you've actually got new neighbors right there in Harrisburg, right? Or right down the road.
Yeah, the riffraff is moving into Harrisburg, out from down south.
The riffraff, right? Those Southerners are coming in, right?
Yeah. So it's actually we back at the anti-right to work rally, right to workers wrong rally a couple months ago. I had a fun interaction with Seth, right? Your friend Seth, and yeah. I was talking about how I'm getting used to spotting out the different birds and herons and egrets along the riverfront. And Seth, responded wow, you really have softened up, haven't you?
Yeah. It's like, oh, look at him. He's a nature watcher. He's got his Audubon Society pin, right?
And you know, it's one of the things I love about living right off the riverfront in Harrisburg, right where we're at, because, like, you know, in Philly, you're not going to be seeing egrets or cranes and other things like that, you know, as much in abundance you do down here. You know, like, for instance, when we were leaving for D.C. a couple weeks ago, I was out front of a lady's house, a person's house I was leaving with, Carrie Fowler, who's running for school board, and we, you know, I'm talking, and she's like, where are these birds flying around? And here's these big herons, right, with short, stubby legs. I'm like, oh, those are your yellow-crowned night herons, right? And they're the rarest nesting species of birds in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And they have a colony that literally lives in Harrisburg and Midtown, right? And they chose it just because it protects them from predators, such as like raccoons and possums and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So like the city life, they can live in the sycamore trees, which are everywhere in Harrisburg, and they're protected from predators because of the city life. Mm-hmm. And they kind of do this anywhere they go. San Francisco is another place where they have like this urban population of these birds. There's only like maybe a few places in the country where like a big urban populations like that is recorded, and Harrisburg's one of them, which is pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
And over the past few weeks, couple months, there's actually been other weird bird sightings in this part of the state, especially in Harrisburg and the central PA part. You know, we had this roseate spoonbill fly in. They're like, have you ever seen these things before?
Only on the nature shows.
Yeah, well, like so this like pink rose-colored bird with like a big spoonbill, like a long bill and like the shape of a spoon at the bottom, and they use it. They're really good fishers, mm-hmm. and they use it for getting insects and stuff like right off the waterfront, or dig into the mud to get crayfish and crabs and stuff like that. And they haven't been seen. They've only been spotted in Pennsylvania like 4 times in the past like 150 years. And one of them made a couple of them, a pair prop made. I think it's a pair, or it's one of them made it flew up here out of Florida, out of the coastal South, and has been hanging around for the past few weeks. There's also been other unique southern birds making an appearance. A wood stork, you know, part of that line of like egrets, cranes, and storks, and also a great egret. A great white egret, which is related to the great white heron, which is related to the great blue heron. And that's also another southern bird. And these, they can get pushed around from like different like changes, say like in nesting, or say they had overpopulated their nests, you know, they had a really successful breeding season, you know, the birds would disperse off in other places. But they also said that one of the things that could happen is climate change might be pushing these birds out of their natural climates. And if you think about the conversation we had a few weeks ago, Pennsylvania is going to have the climate like Texas, the coastal South, in the next 100 years. You could see where these birds are going to fly to.
Well, and here you go. Now check this out. I was just looking up while you were kind of walking us through. This is on the Audubon Society site. So it talks about the habitat of the spoonbills. These like how do you say it? Rosata?
Rosate, or Rosata.
So coastal marshes, lagoons, mudflats, mangrove keys, forages in shallow water with muddy bottom and both salt water, blah, blah, blah. Nest in colonies in Florida, mainly in red mangroves, further west in willows or in coastal islands and low scrub. It says gorgeous at a distance and bizarre up close. The roseate spoonbill, locally common in Florida, Texas, and southwest Louisiana. They are usually in small flocks also associated with other waders. And if you look at their their habitat stuff, it goes all the way around the panhandle of Florida, up in Florida, as far north, right, in this map, as the tip of South Carolina. So the fact that they've made it all the way up to Harrisburg is remarkable.
Yeah, obviously the bird is lost. You know, it could be, and it's been, I mean, people have gone nuts over it. A couple of the photographers I follow on Instagram have actually gone out and got some amazing photos of it. You know, a couple of the photography club groups I belong to on Facebook and the other photographers, you know, they've gone out hunting for this bird to get pictures of it. And they've got some amazing photos of it circulating online. And it's pretty cool that these are up here, but it's also a little concerning at the same time. Like what's happening to their natural habitat? Is their habitat expanding because of climate change and stuff like that? Or are they losing their habitat due to sea level rises?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at it, I think there's a little bit of both of this is going on. And if actually on the Audubon Society, the climate report for the roseate spoonbill, you can actually see they have this kind of time-elapse map where it starts from 2000, then it goes to 2020, then 2050 and 2080, and showing what they expect to be the ranges of this bird, both the winter range, summer range, and both seasons. And what was right now in 2000 was really limited to the Gulf Coast, that down into Mexico. Now is spreading up the kind of watersheds and up the thing into almost Indiana, almost Virginia, right? As a regular habitat, which goes both because of the destruction of the mangroves, destruction of the mangroves because of rising sea levels and the warming of the planet. So, go check it out. Go to climate.audubon.org birds and go look at the Ross Poe, or just look up the roseate spoonbill there.
And whatchamacallit, Penn Life also had a write-up on this, and they had here's a couple short paragraphs. According to the Audubon in Florida, after climbing from a historic low of just 25 nests in 1901 to a high of 1,300 by the late 1970s, it has fallen to about 200 nests in recent years. Like other wading birds, that nest in the region, spoonbills are now moving to new, more scattered areas for nesting, including further inland in the Everglades, and for the first time last year, north into South Carolina.
There you have it.
Yeah.
So on the
and
one,
it says Pennsylvania Southern's visitors will just move out of the state sometime soon. They're seen. Like normally they're seen for a while. They start moving around, and more eventually you don't see them anymore.
Yeah,
unless they're dead.
Right, exactly. I don't like Roloff is going to give up. That's it. But it's crazy. Like on the one hand, like wow, what an amazing, like cool bird to see. Like to see. On the other hand, like the story of where we are right now and our climate stuff. So pretty nuts. So man, Sean, anything else you got for the good of the order for the last call of the day?
Nope. I'm going to go to bed nice and early tonight. I got to be out of here by 2:00 in the morning, and we're going to be leaving by 5 and touching down at 12.
Oh my God. Well, man, I hope you have an awesome and well-deserved vacation. And hope your family does great. You might know that you're going to be psyched to see your little nephew once again, right? Niece. I'm sorry, niece. Duh. Right. See your niece once again. I know that. See your niece once again, and man, have an awesome time.
Thank you very much. I will, and have a fun time up in New York.
Yeah, we'll do. And remember, everybody, if you want to become a member of Raging Chicken Press, you can do so easily at ragingchickenpress.org. You become a member for as little as $5 a month. And, don't want to become a member? Fine. Just go to that same ragingchickenpress.org, click on the support membership tab, and click donate, and you can make a one-time donation. We really need your support. We're expanding like crazy right now. Hope you enjoyed the new setup, and hopefully by the time I get this produced, it's going to be the sound is not going to be too bad. But for now, basically, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We look forward to talking next week with a special edition with Karen Ferdin. For now, we're out of here. See ya!